Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson here for our final interview for tonight. And I'm so excited about this interview. We have Ethleen Sawyerr, who is with Speak, Write, Play. She's an editor and a published author, and she's here to talk to us about her book, as well as to talk about editing, which is something that is so important for us self-published authors because without good editors, we cannot do what we do. So this is a great opportunity if you have questions for her. This is a great opportunity to get your questions answered. If you want to know about editing, how to find an editor, what to look for, what the pricing should be, what's a fair pricing. If you want to learn more about her services, this is a great opportunity for you. So we do ask if you are on our Facebook page, if you're on the Black Writers Workspace Facebook page, we know that you can't share it. But if you go to author Michelle D. Jackson's page, and that's my page, you can find a shareable version of this live stream. And we do ask that you share it on your page so that we can optimize the number of people who are watching. We will also have this on our podcast, on YouTube, as well as clips of it on Instagram and Twitter. We want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to meet Miss Sawyerr and to learn about her services. So, as I said, 3 interviews one night, could not change clothes, but I did change glasses. So I have on my blue glasses now, which means that I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to write. I'm ready to learn about editing because that is such an important piece to the puzzle for us as self-published authors. So let's bring Ethleen on the page. On the screen. How you doing? How's it?
Hi, Michelle. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Like I said, I'm doing my glass changes. And I know one person is very happy to see me wear these glasses, which is my husband, because every other day it seems like there's a new pair of glasses that come in the mail. And he's like, "How many pair of glasses do you need?" I'm like, "I need one for every outfit." So
every outfit.
That's how it works. So it's so nice to meet you. So nice to have you here.
Thank
Our
you.
viewers are part of the Black Writers Workspace, and the Black Writers Workspace is an online community as of this moment, we're right under 10,000 followers on our private group. So if you're not a part of the Facebook group, please join us. We also have Instagram and YouTube as well as Twitter, but we have been able to grow this community it's been less than 2 years and we have 10,000 people. And so we are very active. We talk about a lot of different things. And one of the key things that we talk about is editing, because as self-published authors, we battle back and forth over, do I hire an editor? Do I use Grammarly? What exactly am I going to do? I am a huge advocate for hiring a professional. Hire 3 if you need to. I've always used 2 editors for my books. I've published 2 books. And a lot of that is because of the attitude that people have about self-publishing, that self-published authors are amateurs and the books are not well written. And so those are the types of hurdles that we have to overcome. But before we talk about editing, we want to learn more about you. So tell us about yourself and tell us about your work.
Okay. Well, I am, oh goodness. So I like English. I started the business because I was really trying to figure out, what do I do with the things that I'm passionate about? I basically created a company centered around the things that I love to do. I love teaching, I love editing and writing, and I love just working with people. And so that's me really in a nutshell. I enjoy meeting people from different cultures. I'm from Sierra Leone. And growing up, I was in a multicultural community. And so I learned a couple languages, did some things here and there. And I love languages and I love learning. And I enjoy, fun fact, I enjoy indoor rock climbing. So that's fun to tell people. They're often surprised. They're like, "Really, you?" Yes, I like to go indoor rock climbing where it's safer.
Love that. Love it. So you have a company called Speak, Write, Play. Tell us about your company.
So Speak, Write, Play, we provide English language services. So editing, ELA tutoring, and ESL instruction. And with the editing and the proofreading, we work with small business owners as well as individuals and authors. And so we take what you have. We can do the writing for you. We offer copywriting, but we also do the copy editing and all of that. With the ELA tutoring, we work with K-8 students. And so we come alongside them, providing math assistance, English assistance, all of that. And then with the ESL, we work with those who are either in their home countries or who are in the US, who English is not their first language. So we work with everyone from beginner to the advanced student, helping them climb that corporate ladder, improve their English skills, things of that nature.
That is excellent. And is it mostly virtual, or do you have a brick and mortar location somewhere here in the US?
So if you are in the Atlanta metro area, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, then we will go to you. Otherwise, a lot of the services are remote, virtual.
Okay. I used to live in Atlanta, so it's good to, I lived, I'm a military wife, so we moved around quite a bit. We live in New Orleans now, but we lived in Atlanta for about 6 years, and we have a lot of family there. So it's good to know that you're there. I think your services are much needed all across the country, honestly. However, it's so good to meet someone who's in the area. I am someone who is, like I said, we're going to talk about editing, but I wanted to first talk about your book. Because I was so interested in it. You are the author of a book. Is it self-published as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And it is called Defiant, Redefining Singleness at 30 Plus. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the book and your writing experience. And how long have you been writing? How long have you known that writing is something that you wanted to have a career in?
Well, I started writing when I was 6. I was first published around age 12. And I just, for me, writing really was, I know it sounds a little trite, and I'm sure a lot of people say it, but writing was my escape. It was my release. It still is. And so, I mean, it's not uncommon to find me in a place when life is a little bit quieter and the business is not as hectic. A lot of things aren't happening, to just go sit somewhere and write a poem. I write screenplays, I write skits, I just write everything. And so I've always loved writing, and I've always loved being able to communicate through written text.
Yes, I've always loved writing too. I love that people are so transparent about the fact that writing has been an escape for them. I know it was for me as well. I so enjoyed writing as a young girl. I would read a lot. So because I was always taught that if you read a lot, you write better.
Yes.
And so I would have, my teacher said, you should have a book in every room of the house. So I would have books all over the house, and I was constantly reading. And I was so obsessed with the Holocaust that my mother would have these long talks with me because she thought something was wrong with me. She was like, are you okay? You're reading all these sad books. And I was just fascinated with the Holocaust. And it was something that I spent a great deal of time in reading about, but I would just lose myself in the story. And I would, try to understand the world at that time and what was happening and the tragedy behind it. But it really humanized me. It humanized my experiences just reading about it. So I love that, you say, hey, you were published at 12 years old. What did you publish at 12 years old?
I published a poem.
Excellent.
And then I went on to short stories, and I have my research published as well. That's another fun fact.
Nice. So do you ever go back and read the poem from 12 years old and wonder if you were a better writer then than now?
Honestly, my parents have one of my poems in their house in the living room, and I do every so often I read it just to look and see how creative I was and all of that. Yes, I do.
I find myself doing that as well. It's just, you read the things from the past and you're like, gosh, I had something. I was very transparent at that age. I was very open. I wanted the cookies out the cookie jars. I had to write a poem about it. Whatever it was. Yes, I did that too. There was a magazine here called Write On Magazine, and I used to write and send poetry to them. They never published it, but I was just so excited about the possibility of getting published at a young age. So that is excellent. So your book, Defiant, we're going to dig into this because I think, anyone who's bold enough to talk about the experiences of singleness at 30
Mhm.
years old is really digging into something that is important
Yes.
to our culture. There are a lot of people that are single at a
Mhm.
later stage in life. And so when did you publish your book?
I published in 2019.
Okay,
Yes.
great, very relevant to what's happening now. And what made you write the book, and what did you learn about yourself in
So
writing?
I wrote the book. It started as a series of journal entries, actually, to my unborn daughter in the event that she was 30 plus and still single. And I thought to myself, what are the things I would want her to know so that she doesn't start to feel as if she's less worthy or she's not good enough? And, I'll go through those thoughts, have those thoughts and experience those feelings that are so common, especially in women who are at that age. And so I started a series of letters, and after getting some beta readers, I got some feedback, and they said the letter format isn't really working for me. So I shifted it and made it more of a narrative. And that was really the inspiration. I wanted to communicate how I was living my life now as a 30-year-old woman, 30 plus, and some of the life lessons I've learned along the way, and the messages of encouragement I wanted to pass on to her.
What kind of response did you receive after you wrote the book and people read it?
So I've heard people say, "Oh my goodness, this is me." I can't believe it. And they're like, "Oh, your writing is so, you write so well." And I can totally relate to this. That's the main message I heard from those who read the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Excellent. And so you chose to self-publish. Why was that, or did you prefer? Did you seek a traditional deal?
Well, to be honest with you, I intended the book to stay within my small circle. I didn't really intend for anyone else to really read the book. But as I was sharing about it with people and telling them, and they just seemed so intrigued and all of that. But I chose to self-publish because I wanted to retain some control of how the book was distributed and sort of what my voice was. I didn't necessarily want a publisher to tell me, "Oh, change this, change that," because it was such a passion project. I wanted to keep it that way.
It's so funny you said that. I wrote my first book while my husband was in Iraq. He's a retired officer at this point, but back then it's been a year in Iraq, and we had just moved to Maryland. And I'm from Alabama, so I'm in Maryland. We had 2 blizzards. I had no idea what to do. He was gone, and I had started writing the book before we left Atlanta, and I finished it. And when he came home from Iraq, I said, "Hey, look at what I did," and I showed him the book. And he's like, "You wrote a book?" Like, I was working a full-time job and doing all these other things too. And I said, "Yeah, but it's like a bucket list thing. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do. I wrote it. I'm going to put it on the shelf." And he said, "Oh no, we're going to market this thing and you're going to get it out there." And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. I just wanted to do this and see if I could do it. I didn't know you wanted it." But it was the encouragement I need. And I started to host book fairs and book events, and it did really well. And I was shocked, because it's fiction. And it was my first time writing dialogue. So I know exactly what you say. You do these things like these are passion projects. However, you have to know that anytime you sit down and write, there is someone who I just believe that God wants to read it. So if you don't put it out into the world, it doesn't do what it's meant to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're writers for a reason. It's our talent. It's our gift. Just like if a dancer is born to dance, they need to dance. If a singer is born to sing, they need to sing. And so as writers, we have, and I fought the industry a little bit for this, the hurdle we have to overcome to get the confidence to feel like there is a reader for our work, because what we're taught is you have to get this big deal, you have to get an agent, you have to do all these things. Well, not all the time. Because of self-publishing, you can put your work out there. And so that leads me to the conversation that I was hoping we can have, which is about editing.
Okay.
because of self-publishing and because of our ability to put work out. I mean, and I'm not just talking about self-publishing a book. You can literally write a story and put it on your Wattpad, on your blog, on your, I mean, I could post a short story on my Facebook page if I chose to. The ability to share our work is so great because of technology and social media. However, the need for good editing is still relevant. It doesn't matter that you can publish it. You shouldn't want to publish it if it's not well edited.
Yes.
So, as the owner of the founder of Speak, Write, Play, and the people that you're working with to help them deliver their stories, to help them fine tune their stories, talk to us about some of those common problems you find when you're editing the work of self-published authors, especially those that are new. Some of the things that are common to you and how you have addressed them in the past.
So I know many self-published authors and coaches, especially, they advise their clients and those who follow them to do brain dumps when they're writing. Now, there's nothing wrong with the brain dump. I love the brain dump. But when you are writing a story, fiction, nonfiction, it doesn't matter. There must be some level of organization or intentionality in the writing. And so while I encourage self-published authors to brain dump, I also am a big advocate of outlines. And the outline process just basically helps as you're writing so that you can at least group your thoughts in a way so that it makes sense and there's some level of organization. It doesn't have to be perfect because you do have an editor and the editor is trained and will help with the organization. But I encourage all of my self-published authors to have an outline and do their brain dumps within the confines of an outline.
Absolutely. Excellent. Some of us who write, we're so passionate about writing until we don't think about technique.
Yes.
We're so driven by, the passion to get it on the page. And I get that. I mean, I've woken up in the middle of the night with an idea about my book. I've run to the pad, I've written it out. And, but you still have to take a step back and know that there is technique to doing that. And one of those techniques is definitely an outline. I seem to write and then get to a point, and then I go back and write and start an outline, because you know what happens? I go off the deep end. I build a character and I set a scene, and then all of a sudden I look up and I'm all over the world. I'm doing this. I'm from an airplane to a train. I'm walking. I'm talking in different tones. I'm doing all kinds of things. And then that's when I have to take that step back and go, okay, wait a minute, Michelle. Go clean this up, get an outline. And not only that, but build a chronological map of your characters. You need to be able to, I write it out based on my characters. This year's old, she was 12. She may like the color red. I want to build a character that I can connect with. And so all of that is in this idea of a technique around writing. So I love what you said, and you're absolutely right about the outline. Are there any other things that you notice that a lot of self-published authors do that needs to be addressed or corrected? Outlining is one. What's the next?
Okay, so if we're talking about the grammar, the mechanics of the writing itself, I think that not enough attention is paid to sentences, and just the idea of having punctuation in the sentence. And so I see a lot of authors who write and they have sentences that are maybe 4 or 5 lines long. And yes, you can have sentences like that, but there needs to be punctuation, because the punctuation is not just an editor being a stickler for grammar. It is to help the reader understand. So as we're reading in our heads or as we're reading out loud, so that we know how to read, That's the function of punctuation. Because if you are writing a question, but there is no question mark, I don't understand as I'm reading that is a question. And so as I continue reading, I have to go back and reread and say, oh, wait, this was a question. I should have read it this way instead of that way. And I think it just causes a lot of confusion. I see a lot of run-on sentences in works that I edit. And I think, just understanding the basics of punctuation goes a long way.
Excellent. There are a couple of comments coming in. I don't want to get too many of them without going back and answering them. So we're going to put a pin right there. I do want a third thing. So start thinking about that third, because I'm like stealing things from you. Like, I just want you to know, I am stealing things from you because I have been waiting to get on the screen with an editor to talk about what you're seeing, so that when these things come up, when you have that person who say, I didn't need an editor, I wrote this out of passion and I got Grammarly and I'm good. I want to be able to put a lot of context around why it's important to have an editor, because when you're doing the brain dump and what you're talking about, I do that. Those long sentences, that's the brain dump. That's how it looks. That's how it comes up in my mind, is this really long 13 line sentence. And because you write things and you think that the reader is in your head, you have to paint the picture to draw them into your imagination.
Yes.
But it still has to flow and make sense and stop and start and all those different pieces. But before we get to that, because I don't want to get too far down, Felicia Stone says, I have a question for the guest. What is your source of inspiration to write? By the way, she was saying to me, she never missed my interviews. I am glad I'm not working so I can enjoy this live. So that was very nice. Thank you so much, Felicia. Tell me, what is your source of inspiration for writing? And we're kind of going back because I know we had moved beyond the book, but please answer. I hope that I want everybody to get an answer to their questions.
So I wrote the book at a point in my life that I think many women reach, especially minority women who are professionals. And so my inspiration was just having something that not only encouraged other women in my position, but really spoke to what else we could do that goes against what the culture says. The culture says we should be this and should be that, but we don't have to be that. We could redefine what it means to be a single professional woman in 2021.
Yes, and not only that, we can redefine motherhood. For those of us who cannot get pregnant or who have chosen not to have a traditional family, but may decide to adopt or to never have kids, whatever it is, we can redefine those things. I'm so happy that you said that. We didn't really go deeply into, I didn't want to give all the secrets or spoiler alert on your book. But what is it that you discovered about yourself in writing this book that allowed you or helped you to move forward in your singlehood? I don't know if you're still single, but in that place, what allowed you to move forward?
I discovered that had I been attached to someone during certain periods of my life, I would not have necessarily been able to do all the things I desired to do at the level that I desired to do them. Because I don't think, because you have a ring or you're married that you're limited. But I think because I was single, I was able to pick up and go and do so much more and not feel like I had someone who was missing out on what they desired in their life because of me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to possibly bring you back on at some point so we could just talk all about your book. Because I think there's a lot of interest in learning more about the book. I know we were going to talk about editing, and so I don't want people to think we're jumping back and forth, but I was just trying to get the question answered because I want to make sure that the people who are viewing get that information that they want. There's a couple more things here. Someone said, great point about self-publishing and retaining your voice. William Andrews said, thanks so much for this, ladies. Very much appreciated. And thank you so much, William, for being here and listening or viewing us. So, Ethleen, let's go back to editing.
Uh-huh.
We kind of we took a road backwards. We're going to go forward a little bit more because I know that your company is about delivering a good story. And you
Yes.
mentioned working with businesses.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you work with businesses and how businesses are utilizing editors in this day and age, considering, once again, that we have tools like Grammarly, like, just Microsoft in general. You can always put on your spell check. And a lot of people think that's enough. I'll just spell check it. It's fine.
Yes.
Tell me, how are you working with businesses and what are you finding are some of the issues that businesses are having when it comes to communicating on paper?
So we provide copy editing, copywriting services. Really and truly, if you have a memo, any form of communication with your customers or even your internal staff that you want a second look at before you send that post or you release that document, then we can step in and take a look for you. We can also do the writing for you. And the way we work with businesses is we can do the copy editing or the copywriting for websites, for newsletters, for posts. And it's just so important because, yes, the tools are there. Grammarly is there, but Grammarly does not understand the nuance of language because Grammarly is a machine. It's a computer. It's programmed to just spit out the words so that it makes sense. But if you are trying to write something compelling to get a customer to make a purchase, then there really needs to be some sort of feeling or a deeper level of thought in the words that are chosen, so that your brand is enhanced. And I think that's something that our business owners that come to us, they recognize, because many of them, they say, I'm not a writer. And yes, I can write something and it'll make sense, but I'm not sure I can connect to my customer the way that I need to. We have other clients that we work with where they're constantly sending out messages and posts and newsletters and things of that nature. And they just need to make sure that their brand is seen in the best light. And when you have typos and dangling modifiers and all those grammatical issues in your messaging that you release to the world, you lose trust. You really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in this day and age, with the use of social media, emojis, texting, and we are abbreviating sentences and abbreviating words, those things are a problem when you get into an environment that requires you to communicate well.
Yes.
Everybody is not a writer, and I completely understand. I have a PR firm, and trust me, I know. I do social media management for people. I put out content all the time. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy.
No.
I make mistakes. I write things on the fly. I go back a day later and read it and go, oh my God, I can't believe I put that out there. But it happens because when you are in the world of social media, you need to be producing content all the time. And in the process of creating, and that's even for us self-published authors, if you want to sell your book, you need to be on social media posting about your book. But if you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I need to post today. You don't have anything. You're not creative. You're just not someone who's constantly coming up with content. It becomes very tough because you don't want to continue to say the same thing. Buy my book. Telling people to buy your book is the best way to get them not to buy your book. I've learned that. So you have to be creative. You have to engage them. You have to connect the book with something that's happening and be able to write it well enough for someone to connect with it. One of the things that I believe a lot of people don't, go out and hire someone like you, an editor to help them with their book or whatever writing project they have, is for the fear that you're going to tell them that it's not right and that it needs to be changed. And the fear that you're not going to feel what they're feeling when they wrote it. You're gonna suck the life out of my work. That's what a lot of people think editors do. You guys are vampires. Oh my goodness. That's it. You're vampires. You're gonna suck the life out of my work. And I feel that, because before I hired my first editor, that was my thought. I was like, I'm gonna send this to her and or to him, and I wrote this. I know exactly what I wanted that character to I know the tone I want. I know what I needed them to say. This editor is going to read this and go, they don't understand the dialect. They don't understand, the scene I'm trying to set. This editor is not going to be able to connect with me and my character. But that is not true. It is not true. The editor's role is not to suck the life out of your work. It is to fine tune it, to polish it up, and to make sure it's something that the readers can read. Talk to us about, how do you tell someone that they need to fix the work? And how do you, what language do you use in helping them to understand that you are not a vampire and you aren't going to take the life out of the work, but you are also going to breathe life into it, because now it's more consumable for the reader?
Okay, so whenever I meet with a potential client, we have a consultation and we basically talk about their objectives, the purpose of writing, and we go through this whole thing because I want to understand why it is they're doing what they're doing. And in the process of that conversation, if I think that I may have run into a situation where I need to have that kind of conversation, I let them know from the very beginning, my job is not to overpower you. My job is not to dominate you. My job is to take whatever it is that you're trying to communicate and enhance it and make it palatable to your reader. So when I've gone through a text and the manuscript has all this red on it, I say to my authors before I submit the manuscript back to them, just because you see red does not mean your manuscript is bad. When you see red, those are the areas where I, as the professional who knows English and grammar and who is also reading your book to give you an outsider's perspective, those are the areas where either I was confused or I think you should enhance. You should go back and fine tune so that other people who read your book don't experience confusion, don't get lost. And so they are able to really appreciate and enjoy your book the way you desired it to be enjoyed and consumed.
Excellent. Yes, that's it. The first editor I hired added a bunch of comma splices, and I was mortified because I read it and I thought, this is not what I was looking for. And it hurt my confidence for a minute. But then what I did, I went back to the original version and I found another editor. And I said, okay, what you have to learn also is that the editor has to pick up your tone and understand your tone and understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
And so sending your piece to any editor, let's say you may write sci-fi, but this is an editor who's never edited a piece of sci-fi. So send it to them. If they're not comfortable in that genre, you may not get out of their services what you want to get out of it. That's what I learned. It took me a minute to get that, because I just sent it to them because they had the word editor behind their name, and it was a friend of a friend, and she said they did great with her book, and I sent it over to them, but she wasn't writing fiction. She was writing a nonfiction book. And so it was a different thing. And so that editor and I spent a lot of money with her. I think I spent $500 with her. That's a lot of money for a new writer. And I was like, okay, I got nothing out of this. So I had to hire a second editor. And that editor has been with me through both of my books. And then I hired another editor because I wanted to get a different vision. This is an editor who was writing in the same genre as and I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right page. It costs money to get an editor, and let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's the second fear. I think the number one for me is, will the editor suck the life out of my work? The second is, will the editor suck the life out of my purse? Talk to us about the cost to hire an editor, and you were saying before about the tiers and understanding how, you guys price yourself.
Okay. So yes, there are tiers to editing. And I think a lot of authors, especially first-time authors, need to really understand this, because when you submit your work to an editor, first of all, I always offer a sample. I tell my clients, don't just hire me because someone referred you or because you think I might be good. Let me do a sample so that you can see how I'm going to handle your specific text, and then from there make a decision. But when you do that brain dump that we talked about earlier, and you're not really paying attention to organization, flow, there's not a whole lot of intentionality behind creating the narrative, then that's developmental editing that you will most likely need. And developmental editing is when the editor has to go in and check for consistency and make sure that the paragraphs are organized, that you're not talking about one thing in one paragraph and then completely jump into another subject within that same paragraph. It's just, there's a lot that goes into developmental editing. And so developmental editing is the most expensive. But that is where you want to make sure, if you're going to spend on any level, you want to spend on that level because you want to make sure the story makes sense. Yes, you wrote it, but you're also, as the author, you are biased. And so you are not a reader. And you're writing, yes, to get your story out, but you're also writing for the people who are going to read your story. So you want to make sure that the story makes sense, that it flows, that it's organized. Then we have line editing and copy editing, which really look at your sentence structure. Some people, they consider them the same. Others differentiate between the two. But the point is, after you've ensured that your manuscript makes sense, that it's organized, it flows, then you want to go in and look at your sentences. Are these the optimal words that I could use in my sentence to communicate what it is I'm trying to say? A lot of writers, they are super redundant and they don't even realize I'm redundant as well. So I'll say we don't even realize we're using the same word 10, 20 times on one page. And so with line and copy editing, your editor is going in to make sure that you switch it up. And, maybe you start the same sentence, you start all the sentences in one paragraph in the same way. There's always an adverb, and then you write your sentence. And so the editor will go in and try to switch it up so that your writing it reads differently. So it reads well in the sense that all your sentences are not the same. They're not written in the same structure. And once you've gotten the developmental and the line editing out of the way, the final pass that you do before you publish is you proofread. Proofreading, the reason the proofreading rate is the lowest is because your proofreader is not going to go in and restructure your sentence. Your proofreader is going to make sure your words are spelled correctly. In a situation where you meant to say than, it doesn't say then. You don't have awkward punctuation anywhere. You don't have awkward spacing anywhere. So proofreading really makes sure the copy itself is clean, it's polished, and you're not going to have readers coming back to you saying, oh my gosh, like they had all this random punctuation everywhere and it was just a mess to look. Because visually, you want the text to be clean. You don't want to have mistakes on there.
Mm-hmm. You just gave us a lesson. I love that. Absolutely. So we're talking developmental editing and line editing and proofreading. What with the beta readers? That's after everything is done, and then you would bring in a beta reader, correct?
So I recommend beta readers. Well, you can do beta readers. I recommend beta readers after the developmental, somewhere between the line and the proofreading, because your beta readers will most likely come in and give you their 2 cents about your story. And what we have to understand is beta readers are not the author. Beta readers are just giving you their thoughts, their reactions to your story. So you can choose to incorporate what your beta readers say, or you can choose to not incorporate it. And that's the beauty of self-publishing, because you have the ability to do that. And so I typically fit beta readers in around the line editing phase, and definitely before the proofreading, because once I'm at proofreading, I'm not changing anything. No,
I get it. Wow. If anybody's got any questions, Ethleen, please please post those questions. We had a great interview, very practical tips. People are making comments, but this is the ideal time to get your questions answered about editing. And you just taught me a lot, because the reason why I started the Black Writers Workspace is after publishing my first book, and doing it as a passion project, I realized I knew nothing about the publishing industry. I didn't really pursue a traditional deal, had no idea how to do it. I read about query letters and getting agents, and it just seemed so overwhelming to me. I decided to self-publish, but even in that, there were so many options. Do you use what service you use, and then it was what editors you use. There are all these questions that a lot of us have to answer, and we don't have any guidance. We don't have anyone who can walk us through it. And so starting the Black Writers Workspace was my way of trying to get us together to share resources, share information. And that is exactly what we do on the page, is to share information. But there have been some things in the past, people who have contacted me, sponsors that have contacted me, organizations that are not run by Black people per se, but who are looking for a Black voice. And so having you here as an African-American woman who is an editor, it really does help, because I think what's going to happen on the page is people are going to see you and they're going to want to work with you, because they're going to feel that you can capture their voice, that you understand where they're coming from. Now, I don't say that to say that someone who's not Black cannot edit work of a Black person, or someone who's white. Someone who is only a white person needs to edit white work. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that it helps to reinforce the idea that if you feel that your voice is very unique and your topic is very unique and culture driven, having someone of the same culture can definitely be helpful. So much you just taught us, you just put us through school about these different editors, but what are some of the ranges? You don't have to give me your range if you're not comfortable with what you charge, because I know it's all dependent on each different project. But what is the range, and what do you consider to be a bad range, like out of the park? And I say this because there's a lot of schemes out there. And everybody is saying, hey, I'm an editor. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do that. And you get in there, you're sending people money, and you're not getting what you need. So talk to us about your range, and then talk to us, what we need to be looking for if someone is asking us to pay X number of dollars to get edited.
Okay. So developmental, anywhere from 6 cents to maybe 9 cents per word. And that's because your editor is reading your book, your manuscript, multiple times. You think it's just a one and done kind of thing, but it's not. To ensure consistency, organization, flow, I literally read manuscripts 3-4 times from start to finish and make notes, and it's really time consuming. Line editing, about 4 or 5 cents per word, maybe 3 cents per word. The proofreading, that can be anywhere to from 1 to maybe 2.025 cents per word. Those are the average. I think those are good averages. On average, maybe let's say developmental is maybe 7 cents per word, line is 4 cents, and then proofreading is 0.015. Let's say those are average. Those are good averages. If an editor asks for 5 cents per word for proofreading, it's a scam. If they ask for 6 cents per word for line editing, unless the manuscript really, really needs help, needs a lot of work. And you'll know if your manuscript needs a lot of work, because you will read it yourself and you'll say to yourself, oh my gosh, this is, I really wasn't focusing on anything when I was writing. And then I'd say $1, more than $1 per word for developmental. That's kind of out there, especially in the self-publishing space. But it's super important to understand that editing is subjective. And so what may cost someone 4 cents per word for line editing might cost someone else 5 cents, because the editor has to really go in and clean up the writing.
So I'm going to ask you another question. If this is going to be a question that's probably going to get me in trouble, but is a person a writer if the editor has to rewrite it? You can call a friend on that one if you need.
I've never been asked that. I have to think about that for a minute. I think if your editor, well, I don't think editors should be rewriting per se. What I tell my clients, the ones where there may be gaps in the story, I give them suggestions and ideas, and I make it very clear. This is a suggestion of what I would have loved to read. You're not obligated to use my words. In fact, I don't encourage you to use my words, but this is just what I felt was missing. If the editor has to rewrite the text, I think you are still a writer, because I think what makes a writer is having just being able to communicate and put down what it is that they desire to be shared to the world. With that being said, if your editor is rewriting a good chunk of your manuscript, I would recommend either investing in a writing coach or some writing classes. Because when you really think about it, if your editor is rewriting your manuscript, it's no longer your words, right? It's someone else's words. And that takes away from what it is that you have to say.
Great answer. Thank you for that. Thank you. So we have learned a lot about what you do. We've learned about your book. What is it that you want our community to know more about you, and how can we help you to grow your business?
Okay. So I would love for the community to know that, one, hiring an editor is super important. You have Grammarly, and there are Pro Writing Aid and all these different tools, but there's nothing like an editor, especially one who has been trained and who knows what it is that they're doing, to really help you get your message out in the best way possible. So I think, don't shy away from editors who are asking for a little bit more than you can afford. I'm not saying go break your bank and completely bust open your wallet to pay for an editor, but understand that editing is an investment, and a good editor is not just going to take your money and run. They're going to work with you and make sure that they deliver a product to you that you can be proud of. So I would love for the community to not be so fixated on the price of the editor. If you have a good story and you believe in your story, invest in it, because if you sell X amount of books a month in perpetuity, you're going to get that money back. Right. I would also, I think for us, it's just, I don't think there are enough minority, specifically Black editors who are able to have opportunities like this, or be in front of audiences like Black Writers Workspace to really talk about what it is that we do. I think that there are a lot of non-Black editors who it's easier for them to get business than it is for someone like me per se. And so I think that just being open to working with someone who can back up what it is that they say they can do, that goes a long way.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Black Writers Workspace, for sharing about your book, for sharing with us about editing. I learned a lot because I did not know the differences in all the different types of editing. And I'm very open about what I don't know because I've learned so much from the page, and I'm continuing to learn. I'm working on my third book now. It is a graphic novel. I mean, it's not a graphic novel, it's a graphic nonfiction. So I'm working with an illustrator, and every time, the ideas are there, but we always need someone who can help us to fine tune our ideas. No one becomes successful alone. Yes. Okay. We don't have to do these things in silo. We don't have to be the writer, the editor, the writing coach, the book cover designer, oh,
Mhm.
the illustrator. We don't have to do all those things alone. And so we have to learn that people who are truly, truly successful in what they do, they hire experts. They
Yes.
don't, they find out what they're good at.
Mhm.
And I may be good at writing, but I may not be good at editing. Because, like you said, once you've written it, I know for myself,
Mhm.
I always write my manuscript and I print it probably 7 times and review it
Mhm.
hard copy because I like to read things hard copy. And then once I get it to a place where I feel like it's okay, then I send it to my editor. But probably around that fourth printout, I am no
Mhm.
longer reading. I am reciting what I
Yes.
memorized, which is
Mhm.
not good because I'm missing things. I'm
Yes.
reading it as the girl ran down the street when it says the gorilla ran down the street. And because I know that I was meaning to say girl,
Yes.
and in my head, I'm seeing girl, but on the paper, that's not what's there.
Yes.
So when you think you can self edit, what you find out is that it is so hard to
Mhm.
do it because at some point, as a writer, you stop reading your work. You literally cannot read it anymore. So do not feel that you have to do everything yourself. There are
Yes.
people like Speak, Write, Play that can help you to build that bridge after you wrote it, get it to them, let them do their part, and let them fine tune it so that when it gets out into the world, it is the best it can be. Because remember, everybody, these books will outlive you.
Yes.
These books will be here for a very, very long time. And you do not want your great grandkids to go, oh, grandmama wrote this great book back in 2021 and it's a whole nother, I mean, it's 50 years away from that, and they're looking at your book and it's misspelled words, run on
Mhm.
sentences, and your goal with the book, what your theme is, what you're trying to get the reader to learn about the book is missing.
Yes.
So think long term about who's going to read it, how
Mhm.
this book is going to represent you, your family, and your legacy.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being with us. Any final words for the community or for anyone out there? Please, this is a great time to give it, and then we're going to take you off the screen, but I don't want you to go anywhere
Okay.
so that I can give you a formal farewell. And but for now, please share with us anything you would like for the community to know.
If you are looking to get your manuscript, get your book before the holidays, I strongly recommend that you find an editor this month or next month, because the publishers, the companies that do the printing, they cut off early. So that if you're trying to release in time for Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, now is the time to secure an editor if they're not already booked.
Great advice. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for participating on Black Writers Workspace. And we just hope that you continue to be a part of everything that we're doing. We do have some sponsored ads for Speak, Work, Write, Play that's on the page. If you would like to connect with her and her team, we'll definitely have all of the links and everything in our post about this particular interview. And once again, this interview will be on Facebook, YouTube, podcast, our podcast page, which is on anchor.fm, as well as on Spotify. We will put clips of it on Twitter and on Instagram, and we'll be sure to tag you and everything. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
I'm going to take you off the screen, but don't go anywhere, okay?
Okay.
So everyone, thank you so much for sticking with me today. 3 interviews, 3 sets of glasses, 3 amazing writers, and we've learned so much. I want to make sure that you know that every Thursday and Sunday are our days for our interviews. If you're interested, there is a link on the page where you can actually either be featured in our e-newsletter or you can get an interview. Also, if you're interested in a promo package, you can go to www.authormichelledjackson and go to Black Writers Workspace, and you will see our promo opportunities that we have. And those opportunities will allow you to be interviewed as well as to be promoted in our e-newsletter and on our social media pages. We have so many people. We want to make sure that your companies, your books are out there, and we know that everyone has to do their part in marketing for their businesses and for their books. And so we just want to do our part in helping you to do that. So once again, I'm Michelle Jackson. I am signing off. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for all the comments, and thank you for being a part of the Black Writers Workspace.